Hello everybody and welcome to episode 40. Today we're going to be implementing the bow item finally into the game. Another item that just allows us to fire a piece of ammunition that we'll be able to find as well. So we're going to put quite a few things in. We're going to put the bow in itself, be able to fire it, and also implement the arrow and be able to pick up arrows from the grass and that kind of thing, just as we did with the bombs. So the first thing I'm going to have to do is bring in a whole bunch of new sprites. I'm going to go to Sprites, right click on any of my existing sprites so I can hit Create Sprite from Images. I'm going to bring in OArrow just because it's up here, it's the first one I've seen, and I'm going to call it OArrow. This is just going to be the arrow we fire. I'm going to set the origin to, according to my notes, 2, 6. Okay, quite important to get that right because it's going to determine like whereabouts it fires out from the player sprite and everything like that. Just make sure those numbers are right. Obviously, if you're doing your own artwork, those values are going to vary for you, but you can see kind of whereabouts. I've put it there just sort of on the back and up 1 pixel kind of thing, right? Next sprite I'm going to bring in is going to be OArrow drop. This is what an arrow is going to look like just on the ground. Okay, as an arrow we can pick up. This one's origin is going to be bottom. I'll name it after this, but just like bottom center for the origin, and call it OArrow drop. Obviously these aren't animated, so they don't need any frame rate adjustments. This one's got some frames, but it just determines for the direction to help us out with that. Last of all, we're going to add one more sprite. I'll just type the file name. It's splayer bow strip 16 if you're using my assets. So you can see this. It's quite a lengthy animation because it's a 4-frame animation, but for 4 different sides. And you can see if I just play it, it's pew, 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 just shooting that bow. We can change the frame rate of that down to like 15 if we want. But we want it to be fairly quick. I might turn it up to 20. Pew, 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 pew. Yeah, that looks decent. Because obviously, like, the length of that animation is going to determine the wind-up time, because we're going to create the arrow on that last frame of the animation. So he pulls it tight, and then bam, let's go, and that's where we create the arrow, and that's where it's going to fly away from. Okay, origin needs to match the player's origin. So if I just go to that first frame. And drag the origin down to, I think, there. We can just compare that directly to the player origin. We can see that's in the same spot. Just use the visual reference on his foot there because his foot doesn't move. And then call this splayer bow. All right. Next, just to remind you how all this is going to work, I'm going to come to player state free, player's free state. Oh, we came to the wrong one. Maybe I typed that in wrong. Player state free. There we go. I don't know how we ended up on that one. Come right down to the bottom here in the use item section. You remember that when we press the item key and we haven't pressed the activate key, or we have items and the item we have equipped isn't item none. We do a switch based on whatever item we have equipped, and if it's the bomb, we do use item bomb. If it's the bow, we do use item bow. Hook, use item hook, etc. Okay, so if I middle click use item bow, that'll bring us to our use item func script. You can see where we've got use item bomb here, but use item bow doesn't have anything in it, so that's what we're going to fill out. So in here, quite similar to how we did the bombs, we're going to check to make sure we have some ammo and we're not carrying something. So I'm going to do if global.player ammo item bow, greater than 0, so we have any ammo, and global.ilifted equals no one. It does occur to me now, writing this, that global I lifted no one should probably have been a condition just for using items at all, rather than having to put it in here every time for each one of these, like individually. That's not a big deal. Minor optimization you could possibly make. But assuming we have ammo and we're not lifting an item, global.player ammo item.bow minus minus, just the same as with the bomb, just subtract 1 ammo. And then I'm going to do player act out animation splayer bow, and then comma, because if you remember when we originally wrote this script to allow us to act out an animation, like when we pick up the bombs, etc., we paired it with the ability to pass in an end script, so that when And if that's in there, we have an animation end script, and when we animate, and if we followed this sort of like all the way through or whatever, we'd eventually get to, I don't even remember where I put it, in player act out animation, at some point or other. I don't know if it's in player state act. Yeah, it is. Okay, we eventually get, we build it in, so if we have an animation end script, it'll carry that out at the end of the animation. Okay, this is where that comes in handy, because we can set that to now just carry out a script that will fire our bow and actually create a thing. So player act out animation as player bow, and then we're going to pass in another function, player fire arrow. Okay, we'll define that function in this same script here, so we can see it all side by side. But that's all we actually need to do for using the bow. We just need to subtract a piece of ammo and have you play that bow animation. And then we set this function to be what will happen when that animation finishes. So we just now need to declare what should happen when that animation finishes. I'm going to write function player fire arrow. Again, just under here, just so that we can keep it side by side with use iron bow, because that's probably where we're going to want to look at it. So with instance create depth floor x floor y, just to make sure they're kind of consistent subpixel wise. We'll just round them down wherever we put them. Oh, and floor y -7. It's just a magic number just to correct where the arrow should appear on the player. You might have to play with these numbers for your own specific artwork. Depth, and the object is OArrow, which we haven't made yet. We haven't made an arrow object yet, so that'll just be gray, and it'll probably turn blue. So we're going to make an instance of OArrow, and we're going to with it, and we're going to give it a direction, set that to other.direction, so it faces the same direction as our player, and then direction is going to equal cardinal dir times 90. So it's going to take that direction and find the equivalent direction in a cardinal, and that's to make sure that, like, if our player is moving diagonal, etc., that we actually get a cardinal direction back out of it. If we middle click that, you remember it's just going to round our direction divided by 90, so it's going to give us like either right, up, left, or down as like 0, 1, 2, and 3. Let's come back to that, and then multiply that by 90 to get the exact angle in that direction. We just don't want to be able to fire these diagonals because we haven't built in all the artwork for that, etc. Then I'm going to do image underscore speed. It's going to be 0. We don't need them to animate. Image index equals cardinal direction, because say we just want that 0 to 4 thing again, 0 to 3 thing even for our image index, because you know the way that that sprite works. First frame is right, so that's frame 0, frame 1, frame 2, frame 3, so that works perfectly with that. And then speed equals 6. We're just going to use the speed variable. There's no need for us to get complicated and write in our own way of moving the arrow about when there's something built into GameMaker that just does that for us. It's rare that this is useful, but when it is useful, it saves you a whole bunch of time. We just want the object to move a certain number of pixels per frame in a direction that we've already set up. Just set the speed. It's as simple as that, and then the arrow will just continue to move in that direction until we actually collide with something and want it to do something else. It's as simple as that. There's no need for us to, write something into a step event of OArrow or something like that to move it around. When we can just handle it all by setting this one variable. All right, use GameMaker where you can. You use the built-in things. Just makes your life a little bit easier. Okay, this is almost ready to work, but obviously we actually need to make OArrow. So let's make OArrow. Create a new object and call it OArrow. It's not actually going to be an entity or anything like that. It doesn't really need very many complex behaviors, so it's just a normal object. Going to give it the sprite sArrow. And actually we could probably just test that as itself. It won't do anything as such, but if we run the game, if I swap to the bow, press control, it doesn't appear to have cached. It's doing that thing again. GameMaker does sometimes, I think. Yeah, there we go. I don't know why it's been doing that lately. I'm pretty sure it's just a thing with the beta and it's just a little bug in GameMaker. Whenever I seem to add a new sprite, and draw it, it does something a bit weird with it at first. We've seen that in the past few episodes. Don't worry about it if it happens to you. Anyway, you can see I'm firing this arrow now, and it's coming out roughly in the right place. Now I'm out of ammo, and I can't fire it anymore. But you can see that was working. Okay. Again, just by setting the speed. Right? Super, super simple. Okay, but in arrow, we want it to be able to actually hit things. So we're going to add the step event to the arrow. We'll maximize this. Keep the font nice and big. Description, hit things. All right, var underscore entity equals instance underscore place x, y, p entity. So if we collide where we currently are with any entity. This is great because that means just all the things that are children of p entity will count for this. All right, so it checks collision with all manner of different objects. Var underscore break equals false, and we can set this to true if we want to break the arrow, which in most cases we will. If underscore entity does not equal no one, so assuming we're colliding with something, with that entity, we want to check first of all if object is ancestor of object underscore index, sorry, if that object is an ancestor of p enemy. Okay, so, or rather, object is a child of p enemy, I guess. It's weirdly worded, but oh, yeah, rather specifically, if p enemy is an ancestor of this object, I guess that's what it means, right? So if this entity is a child object of p enemy, then this is going to be true. We want to do hurt enemy, just the exact same function we use when we damage the enemy with our attack, right? And we can see at the bottom here, if I zoom in, we need to provide the enemy, the damage, the source, and the knockback. All right, so the enemy is ID, it's this entity that we are currently withing. The damage can be 25, put it whatever you want. I can't remember what values I generally use. This is what's in my script, so I'm going with it. Other.id is the source. Okay, it's coming from the arrow that'll be running this this event. So it knows the position to do knockback and so on. And knockback can be 20. All right, it'll cause 20 knockback. You can play with those values, do whatever the hell you want. And then break is going to be true, because if we hit an enemy, we definitely want to break the arrow. We don't want it to carry on, okay? You might have special circumstances, maybe it's a magic arrow or something like that, or some special ability or some objects that can be pierced. And that's why we have this functionality in case you ever don't want to break the arrow, okay? Else, assuming it's not a child of p enemy, let's check to see if it has any kind of hit script associated with it. Just the exact same way we dealt with our attack stuff when we were doing melee attacks, right? If entity hit script does not equal -1. We know this variable exists. It might be -1, but we know it exists because we're dealing with the child of p entity, right? So if entity hit script is not -1, script execute entity hit script. All right, and then break equals true. We'll assume break wants to be true if it has a hit script. Okay, and then that just means it won't break if we hit things that don't have a hit script. So like our collectibles, for example, the ammo and bombs and stuff, like the gold and bombs and things that drop. We don't necessarily want the arrow to break on them, but they are entities, so they are going to get hit by this. Okay, so we want to skip. We want to not break if it doesn't have a hit script associated with it. All right, and then once we've done all that withing, at the end of the with statement, we'll do if underscore break instance destroy. All right, just between sort of the end of that with statement and the end of the if statement there. That's all of that. The other thing we want to quickly do though, you won't notice so much, but is reasonably important, is destroy if we leave the camera bounds. Okay, we just want to make sure that if we leave the camera, we destroy this object. I'm just going to copy paste this in actually. I'll just explain. Let's zoom out a little. Just rather than you sitting and watch me typing all this. We get the camera, we get the X and Y of the camera with get view X, camera get view Y. And if we check to see if X and Y are not within a specific rectangle, which is wherever camera X, camera Y is, plus camera X plus camera view width, and camera Y plus camera view height. Okay, that rectangle is just the area of the camera. If XY is not within that rectangle, destroy the arrow. All right, just get through the arrow. Just make sure we don't have infinite arrows. like every time we fire an arrow, it's just coursing off into the distance infinitely. You know, honestly, with the scope of this game, it actually wouldn't really matter, because you're only going to be on a room in a particular screen for a given length of time anyway, and even if you were there for hours and hours and hours, you probably have a limited number of arrows you're ever going to have access to on one screen. So for this to really be a problem, you would need a room in your game where you had like an infinite source of arrows that you could keep picking up, and being able to shoot them off the screen, all right, somewhere where on a path where they never hit anything and would never collide. Okay, and eventually it would become a problem of it would make a little bit of lag, and that's basically the only problem it would cause. But you know, just it makes sense still to have this, I think. Anyway, with that in place, we can run the game now and swap to the bow. We have 15 ammo. You see it decreases as we fire them. And if I fire that into the bush, you can see it breaks the bush. We can hit the slime with it and kill him as well. Maybe it does too much damage, actually. It kills him in one. I can't remember what the damage values are like. You can see it hits those. And you can see, importantly, the arrow just courses straight over the bomb and the gold there. Goes through our character here as well, who doesn't have a hit script. But the signpost does have a hit script, so you can see that one actually flashed as we hit that. If I just restart, you can see that it all again. And then eventually we run out of ammo and I can't fire it anymore. Okay, the last thing we want to do quickly is make ammunition for the arrow. So I'm going to do this. It's really straightforward. I'm just going to find bomb drop. I'm going to duplicate bomb drop, call it OArrow drop. It's a little small there, so let me just zoom in so you make sure, see what I've done there. We just duplicated that. Go to OArrow drop, change the sprite to be SArrow drop, so it's that one. Go to variable definitions, scroll to the bottom where we've got, I'll just zoom right in here, item bomb and 1. We just change item bomb to item bow. You can change 1 if you wanted as well, so it gave you multiple. We'll give you 5 arrows for each arrow drop you pick up, just to show that can actually be different. And there we've made the arrow drop. Really quite straightforward. We do actually need to give it a way to drop, so let's come to OPlant, go to our drop list. We'll just replace one of these -1s with OArrow drop. OPlant B inherits that, so then I'm just going to go to our slime, I guess. Is that where we put? Yeah, we'll put it in here as well. OArrow drop. There's another item it can drop. Run the game now. RNG will have to be a little bit on our side, but if I cut some of this grass, or maybe actually if we use the bow itself, yeah, you can see a couple of arrows have already dropped there. Oh, and from the slime as well. We picked them up, and you can see that increasing the number of arrows that we actually have carried. So there you go, simple as that. Really easy to create new collectibles now. Really easy to create something like the bow that can damage enemies, because we already had most of the system set up. From being able to act out an animation of firing the bow, from the arrow being able to actually hurt the enemy. You can see how it just gets quicker and quicker to add these things when you build the foundation in that supports it, right? We built in generic ways to be able to harm the enemy, generic ways to be able to act out an animation and have that do different things. So when you think about all the things that you actually need to happen in your game, you can plan for them appropriately. Things get faster and faster over time as you start building in that functionality. Okay, you do have to plan, because otherwise you can't make super generic scripts that just cover all circumstances. You have to commit somewhere along the line. But it just takes a little bit of experience and a little bit of knowing what it is you're actually going to need in your game. And once you need that, you can plan for it, and your scripts come together in a very effective way. Alright, thank you very much for watching that. Next episode we'll probably look at building the hook shot into the game since we have all the item stuff already built in. That makes sense to be what we look at next. So look forward to that, and I'll catch you all then. Thanks for watching, guys. See you all next time. A shout out in particular, and in no particular order, to the following patrons: Zardrian, Troy Nall, Blunt BSE, Timothy Hare, Jiminy Whippets, Patrick Sheese, JD O'Dear, Josh Furban, Adrian.exe, Eric Santana, Gary, Isaac Miller, Darth Wolf, Jake Rumsey, Tranquil, Harvig, Elizabeth and Landon Brown, James Ballard, Gage Hunter, Julian Cropley, Michael Kolich, John Kenai, Stephen Chenier, It's Matpoor, Rachel Stewart, Arctics, Feral Princess, John C., Jordan Hake, Vacants, Phil Keane, Jason Welch, Andrew Gilbert, Verpalion, Reva, Kaiser Ho, Figgy, Cabbage Pants, Yoram Pater, Samian Yalegaglo, Rene Dam, Rupinder, Dark Rider 0318, Jason, Relentless Rex, Bertie T, Dakadondago, Robert Churches, James Grimley, Jonathan, Basil the Dog, Raildor, and Max M. Thank you all so much, and thank you for watching. I'll catch you all next time.